At his IPO party he proposed to his ex. In front of everyone. They called me the backup plan. But I didn't cry. I disappeared, then watched him lose everything. Publicly. And this time, I smiled from the front row. I always thought betrayal would feel like thunder. Loud, crashing, unmistakable. Turns out it's quieter than you'd expect. It's the silence between applause. The static hum of champagne flutes clinking in a room where everyone but you knows the punchline. It's standing beside a man in a tailored tuxedo, smiling for cameras under a banner that reads Zane Rowe, Hero of the Year, while the floor crumbles beneath you, and you still don't fall. I didn't fall. Not that night. I stood frozen in a silk champagne gown, custom-tailored for his big night. The night I was sure he'd propose. We were at the Sky Vault Tower rooftop, overlooking the San Francisco skyline. Fairy lights draped the glass railings. Waiters floated by with smoked salmon canapés and Zanepolitan's signature cocktails. A jazz trio played something classy and forgettable in the background. And Zane, my boyfriend of 7 years, the man I helped build a billion-dollar software company from a garage, had just stepped onto the stage with a velvet box in hand. He turned to me smiling. My heart stuttered. Finally. Then he turned away. Toward the other woman. Tessa, he said into the microphone, his voice cracking slightly. We found our way back to each other when I wasn't sure I deserved love again. You remind me of who I was before the chaos, before the success. You ground me. I couldn't breathe. She floated through the crowd like a movie star, golden hair coiled in an elegant chignon, draped in red satin and diamonds I recognized as the ones I'd seen on our nightstand. Tessa Crown. His college sweetheart. The ex who'd once called me his emotional crutch in a now-deleted Twitter rant. I blinked. Surely not. Not here. Not now. But then he dropped to one knee. Tessa Crown, will you marry me? My ears roared. There was a beat of stunned silence. I could feel the attention shift. 100 pairs of eyes flicking between me and her like a tennis match. The real girlfriend and the proposal. Then applause. Loud. Apologetic. Some people clapped too hard to drown out the tension. Tessa gasped, daintily covered her mouth with her manicured hand and nodded. Yes. My vision tunneled. But I didn't move. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. That I smiled. I smiled like a woman who had just realized she'd spent years building someone else's dream, only to be written out of the story the moment he got everything he wanted. Zane looked at me. Just once. Just briefly. Like someone checking if the trash bag had been taken out before guests arrived. I turned my attention to the skyline. The Bay Bridge sparkled in the distance. Distant, indifferent. Like the stars. After the photos and the cake and the endless congratulations, I slipped out the back hallway and leaned against a steel service door. My hands shook, but I didn't let the tears fall. Not yet. Hell of a show, said a deep voice behind me. I turned. A man stood there holding a glass of whiskey. Tailored black suit. No tie. Sharp jaw, crooked smirk. I recognized him faintly, Toa Calder. A venture capitalist. Miranda Moreland's protege. Known for funding ethically run startups and destroying the ones that crossed moral lines. I didn't realize Betrayal had a guest list, I said coolly. He tilted his head. You didn't flinch. Impressive. I flinched internally. I'd have burned the place down. I still might. He chuckled. You built his company, didn't you? My silence was answer enough. Thought so, he said. That pitch deck Zane used during Series A? I've seen your signature in the metadata. Of course. I'd written it. You're not as invisible as he thinks, he said. Some of us do our homework. I finally looked at him. Why are you telling me this? Because I like watching people reclaim their fire. And you looked like you're ready to incinerate something. I exhaled, the air shaking in my chest. I don't even know where to begin. Noah smiled faintly and reached into his pocket. He handed me a small black card. Nothing but an address printed in silver foil. When you're ready to turn this into a funeral, not a pity party, he said, I know where to find the matches. And with that he walked away, leaving me alone with the night, the card, and the sound of my heart finally breaking in peace. When I got home to our apartment, the one I designed, decorated, and paid half the mortgage on, I walked to the living room and sat in the dark. There was a framed photo on the console. Zane and I at our first product launch. He was sweaty, ecstatic. I was holding the first ever user download stats. He kissed me that night in front of 100 guests and said, "We did it, baby. Together." I reached out and laid the frame face down. There was no we anymore. There probably never had been. The next morning I was on every tech gossip site. Shocking engagement at IPO party. CEO Zane Rowe proposes to ex while longtime girlfriend looks on. From co-founder to ghost. What happened to Ava Sinclair? The woman behind the throne. Then under it. I didn't respond. Not to the texts. Not to the pity emails. Not even to the one from Zane that said, "Can we talk?" I didn't mean for it to happen that way. Well, he meant for it to happen exactly that way. Neat. Public. Convenient. By Monday I packed my things. Just my things. I left the apartment keys on the granite counter. And one sticky note. Congratulations. When I arrived at work. Yes, I still showed up to work. People parted like the Red Sea. Some gave sympathetic smiles. Some avoided eye contact. My desk had already been moved. They didn't even bother to ask. I walked into the main meeting room where the dev team was waiting. Zane sat at the head of the table next to Tessa, who was in a crisp cream blazer like she belonged there. "Morning," I said, placing a document on the table. "Effective immediately, I resign as CTO. Murmurs. Zane stood quickly. "Ava, wait. Let's talk privately." "No need. This is my final contribution," I said. He flipped open the folder. His face drained. These are all the system dependencies." "Correct. My code. My security architecture. All proprietary. You never bought them out under Clause 7B. I'm removing all my intellectual property." "You can't do that." I leaned closer. "Watch me." He looked at Tessa. She looked like she had just tasted something sour. I turned and walked out. No one followed me. Except one person. Helena. My younger sister. Dry humor. Big opinions. He shoved a croissant into my hand. "Eat. Then destroy him." That night I went to the address on Noah's card. It was an unmarked office above a bookstore in Hayes Valley. Inside there were corkboards, strategy blueprints, and a pot of truly terrible coffee. Noah was waiting. "You're early," he said. "I'm ready," I replied. "Let's start a fire." The day after I walked out of Zane's office, I didn't get out of bed. Not because I was devastated. No, the heartbreak had calcified into something harder. Tarper. I lay there and rewound every moment, every memory like a projector stuck on loop. I remembered the apartment in Dogpatch with peeling paint and a broken radiator. Zane had just dropped out of grad school. He said, "Give me 6 months, I'll build the future." I had smiled, nodded, and handed over my last freelance paycheck to buy server space. That future? I was no longer part of it. Now he had the future, and I was the footnote. I stayed offline for 3 days. Didn't answer calls. Ignored emails. I read the headlines only once. Zane Rowe, visionary or villain? Ex-girlfriend silent as CEO starts new chapter. Tessa Crown, the comeback queen of tech glamour. I wasn't just out of the picture. I was being painted over entirely. By the third morning I was sitting in my sister Helena's kitchen in a robe, chewing on a stale bagel while she paced in a Jurassic Park t-shirt, ranting like a caffeinated war general. "You know what the worst part is?" she said, slamming a mug down in front of me. "You didn't even get the tax deduction. You helped build a company valued at nearly $1.4 billion, and all you got was humiliation and an oat milk latte. That's generous." It was almond milk. She narrowed her eyes. "I know you're trying to play it cool, but don't. You don't have to be composed." "I'm not being composed. I'm being strategic." She paused, her mouth twitching. "So, you are going to destroy him?" I sipped the coffee. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because right now he still thinks I'm the backup plan." 2 days later I received a visit from Zane's lawyer. A man named Gregory Ashland with cufflinks that cost more than my rent and a haircut that screamed, "I charge by the minute." He came bearing documents and fake sympathy. "Zane has asked me to smooth the transition," he said, placing a thick folder on the table. I flipped it open. A 50-50 settlement. Clean. Civil. Generous even. Too generous. "He's offering me shares in the company?" I asked, flipping to the clause. Gregory adjusted his tie. He feels terrible about how things unfolded. He wants to make things right. Does he know I wrote the root architecture for the encryption layer? Gregory blinked. I'm not sure. Does he know that he cannot legally distribute the newer build because the proprietary patent is still registered under my LLC? Gregory was now sweating slightly. I closed the file. Tell him I'm not interested in generous. I'm interested in accurate. He walks away with what he deserves. Gregory's mask cracked. You're not seriously going to fight this. That would look petty. I smiled. Then let's be petty. I have the time. That night I pulled out my old black notebook. The one with dog-eared corners and startup wish lists from 6 years ago. In the back was a list I'd titled, When I Finally Take the Lead. I'd written it when I was 26, half joking. Now it read like prophecy. 1. Build my own company. 2. Trademark my real name. 3. Buy back the code no one understands but me. 4. Make sure the apology is public. 5. Burn the bridge and sell the ashes as NFTs. Helena peeked over my shoulder. Number 5's a little extra. I shrugged. I'm feeling creative. The next day I met Noah Calder in a loft filled with whiteboards and startup wreckage. His war room, as he called it. He handed me a tablet. This is the list of every angel investor who pulled out of Zane's company before the IPO, because they weren't impressed with the new vision. Let me guess. Most of them liked the old vision. Yours, he confirmed. They said the company lost its heart. It went from innovation to empty pitches. I scrolled through the list. Half the names had been at our first launch party. One of them, Miranda Moreland, had once called me a unicorn in boots. I set the tablet down. And what do you want from me? He leaned forward. To watch you take back what's yours. And you get. I get to watch Zane lose everything. I've wanted to invest in a revenge arc for years. Romantic. Only if you win. Over the next week we worked like ghosts. Noah used his network to track boardroom rumors. Helena posed as a personal assistant and infiltrated a hiring event to overhear conversations about Tessa's strategic marriage, to boost Zane's brand. I quietly began updating and documenting my original codebase. Meanwhile, Zane sent me texts I didn't answer. We should at least talk. I don't want to lose our friendship. Please don't do anything rash. This doesn't have to be war. You are always the rational one. Don't start acting like her. Tessa. The woman who had always seen me as the placeholder. The one who once said, Ava's not sexy. She's safe. He was wrong. I wasn't safe. I was just waiting. One morning I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just a flash drive inside and a handwritten note. She's not who she says she is. Use it well. I plugged the drive into a secure computer at Noah's loft. Hundreds of images. Receipts. Messages. Email threads between Tessa and a man named Roman Alvarez, a foreign national. One document stopped me cold. Marriage certificate. Tessa Crown and Roman Alvarez. Dated 14 months ago. Holy hell, Helena whispered over my shoulder. She's married. Noah stepped closer. Roman Alvarez. Wanted for corporate fraud in Dubai. She's either scamming him or scamming Zane. My fingers hovered over the mouse. Let's find out which. That night I met Zane at a rooftop cafe overlooking the Embarcadero. He looked tired. Slightly sunburned. Distracted. Thanks for coming, he said. I wasn't sure you would. I'm curious, I replied. What's the spin this time? He sighed. I messed up. I know that. But we were broken before Tessa came back. Were we? You became distant. Obsessed with the code. I needed someone who made you feel like a man again? I offered. Someone less intimidating. Someone who clapped for your mediocre ideas and didn't question your ethics. He flinched. I smiled. I know about Tessa's husband, I added casually. He paled. You didn't think I'd find out? I asked. You underestimated me. Again. Ava, it's not what it looks like. No. It's worse. I stood up and leaned close just enough for him to hear. This is your last warning. Walk away quietly, or I make sure the entire world sees who you really are. Then I walked out, letting the sunset catch on the edges of my smile. This wasn't heartbreak. This was ignition. When word of Tessa's secret marriage hit the whisper networks in Silicon Valley, the vultures began circling. But they weren't circling her. They circled me. Because in this town it's never about what he did. It's about how you responded. I walked into Copperhead Cafe, our usual investor haunt, for a meeting with a former mentor, only to find myself flanked by 3 of Zane's former board advisors, sitting like a firing squad over cappuccinos. "You've always been brilliant, Ava," one said, tilting his head like a disappointed uncle. "But this feud? It's unbecoming." "I'm not in a feud," I said, slipping off my coat. "I'm in recovery." Another, sharper voice chimed in. "Why not take the high road? Women who come out ahead in these situations usually keep quiet. They rebrand. Start a wellness podcast." Helena, who was sipping an iced mocha next to me with the nonchalance of a cat in a room full of mice, raised a brow. "Or maybe she starts a company that eats his alive." The first man chuckled uneasily. "Look, we're just saying you're smart. But the longer you dwell on this, the more they'll paint you as bitter. Think about your legacy." That word. Legacy. I looked down at the cappuccino they'd placed in front of me. It had a perfect leaf design in the foam. Picture perfect. Like my relationship had been. Just like Zane. All foam. No depth. I stood. "Thank you for your concern. But I'm not building a legacy for them. I'm building it for me." Helena downed the rest of her mocha and added, "And hers won't be powdered sugar and PR statements. It'll be fireproof." That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bedroom, temporarily moved back into Helena's guest room while sorting things out, and stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars we'd stuck on the ceiling when we were 12. The headlines had shifted. Sources say Ava Sinclair refused settlement. Insiders call it prideful. Zane Rose fiancé, I have nothing to hide. Exclusive interview. Silicon Valley's ice queen. Genius or just bitter? I sat up, pulled out my tablet and opened a new page. Op-ed draft, on bitterness and brilliance. By Ava Sinclair. I didn't finish it. But I saved the file. 2 days later my mother called. She rarely did unless it was a holiday or someone had died. This time it was neither. "I saw the interview," she said gently. "That woman is very blonde. Is that a critique or an observation?" "I'm trying to be neutral," she replied, which was her way of saying she hated Tessa but wouldn't say it aloud. Then she got to the point. "I spoke to Pastor Green. He said we should pray for strength and grace." "Mom. And your father suggested, maybe this is the time to consider having a child. Before it's too late." I nearly dropped my phone. A child. Men come back when they see what they're missing, Ava. I stared at the wall. He already saw what he was missing. Then he replaced it with someone who giggles at crypto jokes. She sighed. "I'm just saying, don't let this become your entire story." I smiled tightly. "That's the point, Mom. It won't be. He'll just be the prologue." Later that week I met with my old lawyer Renata Blake. Renata had handled all my early contract work when Zane and I launched Virion Tech. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "He's going to fight back now that he knows you have leverage," she said, flipping through the patent papers I'd finally retrieved. "And Tessa? She's not stupid. Expect deflection. Or defamation. Let them try." Renata raised a brow. "And what are you planning in the meantime?" I slid over a hand-sketched logo and a typed outline. A new company. No more patching up someone else's ambition. No more being the second name in a footnote. This time it would be mine. That same night, Noah invited me to an underground product launch party. Underground meaning, no media, no influencers, just real developers, burnt-out founders and bitter exes trying to feel relevant. I wore black. The kind of black that made a statement without saying a word. He met me at the door, smirking. "You know you've become a myth, right? Good. Myths don't get sued." He handed me a drink. "Tessa's firm tried to run a smear campaign against you last week. It fizzled." "How?" "I paid someone more charming to start a rumor that she was the silent third wife in a royal Dubai scam marriage." I stared. "That's not true, is it?" Noah shrugged. "Doesn't matter. He's playing dirty. So are we." We sat together in the back of the room while a new AI tool got demoed. The room buzzed with hopeful tension, like every person was one algorithm away from changing the world. And for the first time since Zane's betrayal, I didn't feel bitter. I felt awake. I used to want applause, I said quietly. Now I just want clarity. Noah leaned in. You can have both. And when you're ready, I'll help you take the stage. His eyes were steady. No hunger in them. Just quiet understanding. The kind of gaze that says, I see what they missed. And that terrified me more than anything. Back at Helena's apartment, I told her everything. The old logo. The new concept. The plan to reclaim everything I'd built. She listened. Nodded. Then grinned. Finally, she said. You're getting interesting. What was I before? Heartbroken. No. You're dangerous. 3 nights later, Noah arranged a private meeting between me and 2 investors who had dropped out of Zane's IPO. We met at a rooftop speakeasy overlooking Market Street. Felt like déjà vu, but this time I was in control. The investors, both women, both tired of backing charismatic male founders who turned out to be frauds, listened closely as I outlined my new product vision. Ethical AI. Transparent contracts. Creator-first coding environments. By the end, one said, You're not just rebuilding. You're starting a fire. I nodded. I'm tired of playing with matches. I want the whole bonfire. That night, Noah walked me home. Why are you really helping me? I asked. He paused. Because I've watched too many women get erased from the things they built. You're not going to be one of them. I stopped at my doorstep and looked at him. His voice lowered. And maybe I like the fire in you. There was again. That soft, terrifying truth. I didn't kiss him. But I didn't shut the door either. In the early hours of the morning, I posted a single message on my personal account. My first in months. Sometimes the breakdown is the beginning. Not the end. Below it, I attached a short clip, grainy footage of Zane praising Tessa during the IPO party, cut side by side with me quietly walking out the back door. No caption. No explanation. It went viral in 12 hours. Revenge, it turns out, doesn't always require a sword. Sometimes, it arrives in a glittery envelope, couriered by a woman too arrogant to know she's handing you the blade you'll eventually use to slit her entire reputation open. The envelope was glossy pink, sealed with wax. The initials TC were stamped in gold. It landed at Helena's apartment door on a Thursday morning like a passive-aggressive thank you note. Helena picked it up with tongs. Do we burn it or steam it open like spies? I say we open it. If it's from her, I want to see just how stupid she thinks I am. Inside was a thick stack of photos, carefully printed and bound with a rose gold clip. Romantic shots of Zane and Tessa in Paris, Lake Como and Malibu. Him kissing her neck. Her sitting in his lap. One where she was wearing my pendant necklace. The one Zane had said was too minimalist to be remembered. At the bottom was a handwritten note on personalized stationery. Dear Ava, it's time you let go with dignity. We're happy. The world knows now. You had your season, it's over. Maybe find a new hobby? Wishing you peace and healing. Tessa kiss mark. Helena read it, blinked twice, then snorted. Wow. This is the kind of dumb you can't even buy. It's born into the bloodstream. I didn't speak. Not immediately. I just picked up the photos and flipped through them one by one. And then I started laughing. Not a dramatic soap opera laugh. No, quiet. Hollow. The kind of laughter you make when the last puzzle piece just clicks in. Because printed on the corner of each photo in small, nearly invisible text was metadata. Date. Time. GPS coordinates. Every image had a timestamp. Every image was perfectly aligned with dates Zane had claimed to be out of town on business. One trip overlapped with the week my father had been in the hospital. Zane had missed the visit, saying he had back-to-back investor meetings in Seattle. Apparently he was in Rome. With her. Kissing her beside the Trevi fountain while I was feeding ice chips to my dying father. Helena looked up at my silence. Ava, you okay? I'm fine, I said, a smile creeping across my face. She just gave me everything I needed. That evening I met Jason, Zane's old friend turned estranged business partner, at a dive bar in Soma. Jason had cut ties with Zane 2 years ago after a dispute over profit sharing. He'd always liked me. Said I was the brains in the shadows. He looked at the photos and whistled. She really thought she was taunting you, huh? She's a genius. Just the wrong kind. Jason sipped his drink. So what's the plan? I slid a flash drive across the table. She just confirmed she was with Zane during his audited trips. If I tie these to his business expenses, which I will, it's tax fraud. Not to mention ethics violations if investors believe he misused company funds. Jason smiled. You're terrifying. I respect that. I'm not done. Oh. She also wore the necklace I bought with my own money. Meaning she received property funded by my finances while he was still married to me. Technically that's alienation of affection, if we pursue it. Jason grinned. Now you're just showing off. Also not done. I pulled out another document. Noah tracked down Alex Liu, the intern who Tessa bullied out of her last PR firm. She kept receipts. DMs, voice memos. One where Tessa brags about marrying Zane for media leverage. Jason choked on his beer. You have audio? Oh yes. Noah's reaction was more composed when I showed him everything. He nodded slowly, tapping his pen on the edge of his desk. She doesn't realize how loudly she screams into the void, he said. I don't need to scream, I replied. I just need to whisper in the right ear. He looked up. You ready to whisper? Yes. Then I think it's time you met Miranda Moreland. Miranda Moreland was not just an investor. She was the investor. Former partner at Axiom Ventures. Founder of a fund dedicated to empowering women-led startups. She once destroyed a biotech founder's career with a single press interview and made $1 million on the fallout. She agreed to meet me at her gallery in the Mission District. I wore black. The uniform of control. She greeted me with a cool handshake and sharp eyes. I've been watching, she said without preamble. Zane's downfall has a strangely elegant pace. Like someone's playing chess with fate. Then let's call checkmate. I handed her a folder. Copies of the metadata financial overlaps, Tessa's audio file, and a list of quiet whistleblowers who had reached out to me since the story broke. She read in silence. When she finished, she closed the file slowly and said, You're not angry. No. You're surgical. I smiled. Is that a problem? It's a solution. She stood. You'll have my backing. But I want something in return. I raised a brow. When this is done, she said, you don't disappear. You build. Bigger. Louder. Let them choke on your name. Deal. That weekend, a banner appeared at Tessa's former university gala. It read, The Pregnant Concubine Speaks. Alex Liu tells all. Below it, a screen played the audio of Tessa threatening to blacklist Alex for being too ethical. Students filmed it. It went viral. Tessa issued a statement claiming the audio was taken out of context. But the internet didn't care. He trended for 4 days straight. #TessaThreat. Zane tried to distance himself. Claimed he wasn't aware of her behavior. Too late. The board of Virion Tech began internal investigations. Their IPO lockup period was now a time bomb. And I signed the paperwork to reclaim my patent. The one I'd quietly transferred back under my new company, Archiva Labs. The press hadn't caught on yet. But they would. That night, Noah showed up at Helena's with takeout and a grin. She's imploding, he said, handing me sesame noodles. Correction. She's handing me the matches. I'm just lighting the fuse. He looked at me for a long time. Do you ever regret loving him? I thought about it. About the years. The effort. The lies I'd let slide. No, I said. But I regret not loving myself sooner. He reached over and touched my hand. Not possessive. Not urgent. Just there. Solid. Present. And for the first time in weeks I didn't pull away. There's a moment in every takedown when the target begins to suspect the fall. It's not when the press turns. Not when the sponsors back out. Not even when the board starts using words like restructure. It's when strangers stop smiling at them. And that's exactly what happened to Tessa Crown at the Van Allen Foundation Gala. 1 month ago she would have floated into that marble lobby like royalty. Cameras flashing, influencers crowding, sponsors whispering her name like prayer. But this time the flashes were for someone else. This time, I showed up too. I wasn't even on the guest list. That was the fun part. Miranda Moreland made a single call and suddenly my name appeared at the top. I arrived in a dark green velvet gown with Helena beside me and Jason somewhere behind enemy lines, casually chatting up the media interns for camera access. Tessa stood at the center of the room, laughing too loudly in a crystal-embellished dress that sparkled like desperation. Zayn was at her side, tired, drawn, pretending to listen to a hedge fund manager's half-hearted joke. She spotted me, and her smile froze. I could see the calculations in her eyes. What was I doing there? Who had invited me? Why did I look so calm? I walked up slowly, glass of champagne in hand. My heels echoed like countdowns on marble. Evening, I said coolly. Lovely event. Zayn stiffened. Ava, you weren't invited. Correction, I said, I was upgraded. Tessa recovered quickly. Well, it's so nice you're trying again. I heard your new company hasn't launched anything yet. Still ideating, are we? Helena, standing beside me, tilted her head. We like to let the ground tremble before we erupt. Tessa's smile twitched. I leaned in. By the way, you might want to check the university forum you're trending on. Something about unethical behavior and plagiarized PR campaigns. Her face paled. Oh, and Tessa? I added. The registrar's office found your falsified credentials. They're reviewing your honorary alum status. She choked on her champagne. Zayn stepped in. Ava, this is ridiculous. Is it? I asked, holding up my phone. On the screen was a video of Tessa in a private meeting, berating a junior associate, laughing about making up degrees to impress donors. Someone had leaked the footage. I hadn't even planned it. But karma. He works overtime. By Monday morning it was everywhere. Hashtag Tessa the Tyrant returned to Twitter like a long-awaited sequel. Clips of her screaming at staff. Threads exposing her plagiarized speeches. A viral TikTok of her stumbling off stage at a women's empowerment brunch after being booed mid-introduction. Worse, someone updated her Wikipedia page. Under education, it now read, studied public relations at the University of Lies and Manipulation, unofficially. Even Zayn's PR team couldn't spin it. They released a lukewarm statement. Ms. Crown's past professional conduct does not reflect the values of Virion Tech. We are currently reviewing her advisory position. Translation: she's toxic now. Please don't cancel our IPO. Too late. Meanwhile, my own company, Archiva Labs, was quietly gaining traction. Noah lined up soft meetings with VCs. Helena leaked just enough concept art to get people whispering about a female-led ethical AI alternative, poised to disrupt Virion Tech's model. And Miranda? She did what she does best. She hosted a brunch at her private gallery and invited the top 5 female tech reporters in the country. I didn't give them a pitch. I gave them a story. I told them about starting code in a basement. About watching my name vanish from the company I helped build. About being told to move on instead of reclaiming. And I ended with the sentence that made headlines the next day. I didn't come back to compete. I came back to correct history. Back at Zayn's world, things were spiraling. His assistant, Gemma, quit in a viral LinkedIn post titled, "Why I Won't Work for Men Who Trade Brilliance for Blonde Hair." 3 investors pulled out. Their Tokyo partner canceled an upcoming summit. And the audit into Zayn's spending habits was officially underway. Because remember those romantic trips Tessa bragged about in her glittery envelope? Yeah. Zayn had expensed all of them under international R&D meetings. Fraud. Tax fraud. I was standing in Noah's office, watching the mess unfold across 3 screens when Jason burst in. He tossed a flash drive on the table. This just landed in my inbox from an anonymous source. You'll want to see it. It was a voice memo. Zayn. Talking to Tessa. You were supposed to fix my image. Not destroy it. I'm not the one who chose Ava's shadow to build your empire. We can still spin this. She doesn't have it in her to finish us off. She's too soft. I looked up slowly. My hands steady. My heart not even racing. Noah just smiled. Guess he hasn't been paying attention. The final blow came at the Virion Tech Spring Showcase. A live-streamed event that was meant to rally investor confidence. Zayn stood on stage, visibly thinner, sweating under the lights. He began his speech. 2 minutes in, the screen behind him glitched. Once. Twice. Then the slides disappeared, and were replaced with a single image. This presentation has been interrupted by integrity. A second later, Tessa's plagiarism, her falsified degree and leaked voice memos flashed on screen, complete with dates and sources. Then silence. He froze. And then, Someone in the crowd started clapping. So purposeful. The camera panned and caught me in the front row. Clapping. Zayn left the stage in silence. Tessa didn't even attend. Her Instagram had been wiped clean the night before. A single story had remained for 12 hours before it disappeared too. You win, Ava. But at least he'll never love you. Helena's response? Sweetheart, if he could, he wouldn't have lost her. That night the press had a field day. The mistress falls and the queen returns. Tessa Crown, from it girl to PR catastrophe. Ava Sinclair silently claps, entire industry listens. Noah and I watched the coverage from my apartment, curled on the couch with popcorn. Still think you're soft? He teased. I raised a brow. Soft like a hammer. He laughed and then quietly reached for my hand. I let him. Because this wasn't about Zayn anymore. This was about me. Finally. I always thought the term real wife was antiquated. Outdated. A relic of patriarchal branding in romantic chaos. But now I understood the power of it, not because of what it said about marriage but because of what it didn't say about replacement. Tessa had been paraded as his perfect partner. His future. His queen. But she wasn't the one who'd built the foundation. She hadn't signed the first apartment lease while he coded through the night. She hadn't sat in front of angel investors while he fumbled his pitch and nearly fainted. She hadn't picked up Thai takeout on the nights neither of us had money to cover rent. That was me. The wife in everything but name. And now legally the only wife. So, Zayn had filed for dissolution 2 weeks ago, after the Tessa scandal went nuclear, but the court date was pending. Which meant one thing: I still had a legal foot in the door. And I planned to kick it wide open. The first step. Taking back the apartment across the street from Virion Tech headquarters. It was a glass-wrapped corner unit that Zayn had secretly leased for Tessa, claiming it was company space. Turns out he'd used marital funds to pay the deposit. So I moved in. Legally I could. And symbolically? It was delicious. The concierge looked startled when I showed up with my keycard. Miss Sinclair, he blinked. I thought Mr. Rowe changed his mind, I replied, breezing past with Helena, 3 rolling suitcases and a potted ficus named Karen. Helena threw herself onto the plush velvet sofa the moment we got in. You do realize he's going to implode when he sees you walking out of this building in the morning. I grinned. That's the plan. And implode he did. I didn't even have to wait long. That Thursday I walked across the street in a navy blue suit and sunglasses, carrying a coffee and the architectural plans for Archiva Labs under my arm. Zayn was in the lobby of Virion Tech, probably heading to a damage control meeting. He spotted me through the glass, and froze like a man who just realized he left the stove on during a hurricane. I held up the coffee cup and smiled like a campaign ad. The receptionist actually laughed out loud. By the time I reached the sidewalk my phone buzzed. Zayn, what are you doing in her apartment? Me, it's ours. You used marital funds. I just exercised my half. Zayn, you're being vindictive. Me, I'm being thorough. That afternoon Helena called from the apartment balcony. He was filming something. Get this, she whispered. Tessa showed up. She just had a meltdown in the lobby. She doesn't even live there anymore. Tell her that. I watched from across the street through tinted windows. Tessa, in oversized sunglasses and a silk robe, waving her arms at the concierge like a reality TV star mid-breakdown. The building manager came out. Tried to reason with her. Then security gently escorted her out. Someone filmed it. Of course they did. And someone posted it. Of course they did. It went viral before dinner. Tessa Crown meltdown. Thrown out of CO's love nest by legal wife. No longer the queen. Ava Sinclair reclaims what's hers. Hashtag the real wife returns began trending on Twitter within 6 hours. I didn't tweet. I didn't have to. I just posted a photo of the view from my new living room. City skyline, glass of wine, and the caption. Clarity. Later that night Zayn showed up. At my door. He was unshaven, tired, dressed like someone who had just survived a financial apocalypse. Which, to be fair, he had. Tessa had ghosted him. Her PR team had dropped her. 3 speaking gigs were cancelled and Virion Tech's upcoming partnership with Solara Tech had officially dissolved. He looked human. Not broken yet. But fraying. Ava, he said, can we talk? I crossed my arms. You're standing in what used to be her closet. That's not fair. I raised a brow. Which part? He sighed. I didn't mean for it to go this way. Didn't you? He stepped inside uninvited, eyes darting around. Helena's redecorating, I said. We call this shade vindictive orchid. He ignored the jab and sat down. I know I made mistakes. I waited. He fidgeted. But you don't have to destroy everything. You're winning. Everyone loves you again. Just let this go. I tilted my head. You're not sorry. You're tired. Ava. You weren't sorry when you expensed spa trips for your mistress's R&D. You weren't sorry when you used my code without my name. You weren't even sorry when you proposed to another woman with my words. He flinched. What? The speech you gave. I wrote it. 3 years ago. Valentine's Day. I found it in your Dropbox. Silence. Then, I didn't think you'd remember. I stared. That's the thing with people like you, Zane. You assume the ones who remember everything are the ones who'll stay silent. I gestured toward the door. He stood. Fully. And for a second, just a breath, he looked like the man I used to know. But nostalgia is a liar. And I didn't miss him. Not anymore. The next day, my lawyer Renata filed a formal motion for a complete asset review of Viriontech's founding documentation. Zane had tried to scrub me from the origin story. I had the proof that wouldn't let him. Code timestamps. Old Slack threads. Original contracts signed by both of us. And when Archiva Labs announced its official pre-launch beta on TechWire the next week, the opening line said it all. Created by the architect of the original Viriontech platform, Ava Sinclair returns with a mission. Innovation with integrity. Miranda took me to lunch to celebrate. She ordered champagne before I even sat down. You've made enemies, she said with a smirk. But also, investors. Enemies are free, I said. Investors fund the next chapter. She clinked her glass with mine. Get ready, she said. Because you're not a cautionary tale anymore. That night, Noah brought dinner and a vinyl record from a jazz bar I'd once mentioned in passing. You remembered, I said surprised. I remember all the important things, he replied. We ate on the floor surrounded by unpacked boxes and Helena's half-assembled wine rack. When the record ended I looked at him. And for the first time I let the past go. I kissed him. Not out of pain. Or revenge. Or hunger. But choice. There's a saying, be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Tessa Crown got everything she wanted. The man. The status. The spotlight. But nobody tells you that once the glitter fades, all you're left with is the mess you built, and the man you stole. After the gala disaster and viral meltdown, Tessa disappeared for exactly 12 days. No social posts. No paparazzi sightings. No new interviews. Zane, meanwhile, was still doing damage control. Alone. Board meetings without her. Shareholder calls with canned apologies. Every day another investor bailed. Another sponsor pulled out. And then she returned. Slipped back into his penthouse like a ghost in designer heels. Jason told me. He'd been tipped off by a photographer camped outside the building who recognized her sneaking in the service entrance wearing a hoodie and sunglasses. She'd come home. Or whatever they thought home was now. But the fairy tale was fractured. Because the version of Zane she inherited wasn't the golden CEO she'd paraded at galas and award shows. It was the crumbling man underneath the performance. The one who now kept his phone face down. The one who had to ask Miranda for a sit-down to clarify intentions, and was politely laughed out of the building. The one who, every day, saw headlines that had nothing to do with him, and everything to do with me. Archiva Labs nears $8 million in seed funding. The Ava Sinclair comeback continues. From betrayed to backed. Ava Sinclair's meteoric rise. Tech's favorite underdog has teeth and talent. Tessa tried to spin a new narrative. I heard the whispers. She's the victim now, Helena reported one afternoon while reorganizing the spice rack in my apartment. Apparently you orchestrated the media takedown and she was just the collateral damage. Did she forget she mailed me her own downfall? Selective memory is her love language. Noah snorted from the couch. Let them scramble. The more she talks, the more unhinged she looks. He was right. Because their story, the forbidden romance, the grand betrayal, the picture-perfect match, was unraveling fast. Without the power, the press, and the prestige, all they had left was each other. And that's when the chaos began. It started small. Tessa showed up unannounced at Zane's office one afternoon while he was in a meeting with a potential investor. She burst in, demanding to know why he hadn't texted her back during a lunch meeting. The investor, Elliot Sharp, a notoriously private old money type, left without shaking hands. The meeting was never rescheduled. Then came the leaks. Screenshots of Tessa's late-night Instagram DMs accusing influencers of stealing her aesthetic. Audio of her yelling at a Lyft driver for taking a non-scenic route. Even a blurry video of her throwing a drink on Zane at a private lounge. Caption: when the mistress gets the man, and realizes she hates him. Meanwhile, Zane was floundering. His attempt at a press interview backfired. He looked gaunt, evasive, and most damning of all, uninteresting. One reporter even wrote, "Once the charismatic poster child for underdog success, Zane Rowe now reads like a footnote in a more compelling narrative." Translation: he was losing the one thing he valued more than love or loyalty. Relevance. On the other hand, I was thriving. Miranda arranged an invite to speak at the Global Women in Tech Summit. I stepped on stage in black silk red lipstick and a smile that said, "I don't forgive, I evolve." My talk was titled, "Building from the Rubble, How to Code a Comeback." It ended in a standing ovation. Backstage, a young developer approached me with teary eyes. "You're the reason I didn't quit." That hit deeper than any headline ever could. That night, Noah and I sat on the balcony watching the city pulse below us. He handed me a glass of white wine and said, "You know, for a while I wondered if he would come back. Try to win you over." I nodded. "He already did." He turned. "He did. Last week. Unannounced. Said I was the only one who ever really saw him." "What did you say?" "That I saw him. Curry. And that's why I left." Noah chuckled. "You're colder than me." "Not cold," I said. "Just done." Tessa and Zane's final public blowout happened at the Rivet Lounge, a place they used to frequent when everything was shiny. She screamed at him in front of 3 other founders, calling him a discount legacy with a rebranded ego. He told her she was a social climbing mannequin with a crisis playlist. Someone filmed it. Of course. The video hit TikTok in hours. It got over 4 million views. The top comment: "Ava took her time, her silence, her wine, and let them burn." After that, Zane vanished from the public eye. No interviews. No panels. No appearances. Tessa tried to rebrand. Did a sad podcast about navigating female fragility in a patriarchal storm. It flopped. She was dropped by her brand partners within the month. Meanwhile, Archiva Labs launched its beta platform to overwhelming interest. Sign-ups exceeded projections by 220% in the first week. We threw a private celebration at the edge of Sausalito. Just our team. Close friends. People who had seen me at my lowest and never asked me to stay there. I stood with a glass of champagne looking out at the water. And for a moment, just a moment, I remembered what it felt like to want Zane to be proud of me. And then I smiled. Because that girl. She was gone. And the woman who took her place didn't need pride from a man who once saw her as a footnote. Every story needs a climax. And in Silicon Valley, climaxes come wrapped in black tie galas, 5-course menus, and custom nameplates on gold-rimmed wine glasses. The Aurora Tech Impact Gala was the season's crown jewel, an exclusive night for top founders, funders, and the future makers of innovation. Miranda Moreland sat on the board and made one call. "Ava, you're the keynote speaker this year." I didn't hesitate. Not for revenge. Not for closure. For legacy. Noah and I arrived together, stepping onto the navy carpet lined with flashes of white light. I wore an off-shoulder silver dress tailored to say one thing. This is what survival looks like when it thrives. Noah offered his arm like we'd been walking red carpets for years. He leaned in and whispered, "You realize half the room's going to think this is your final boss moment?" I smiled. That's because it is. Inside, the gala glittered like a curated constellation. A live orchestra played subtle jazz, and under the soft clinking of glasses, buzz about Archiva Labs filled the air. I caught snatches of conversations. She rebuilt from ashes. First ethical AI platform with built-in transparency scores. Zane's company can't hold a candle anymore. I didn't flinch at the name. I hadn't heard from him since the Rivet Lounge incident. But I had a feeling tonight would change that. I was halfway through a conversation with a robotics researcher when I saw him. Zane. He walked in late, alone, in a midnight black suit that did nothing to hide how far he'd fallen. His hair was longer, disheveled. He looked like someone trying to mimic his old charm with an outdated blueprint. And then he saw me. Our eyes locked from across the ballroom. I nodded once. He froze, then started toward me, weaving through the crowd. Noah stepped closer, protective. You want me to block him? No, I said. Let him come. Zane stopped a few feet away. His voice was low, scratchy. Can we talk? Privately. I turned slightly. I'm not sure there's anything left unsaid. There's always more, he replied. Especially when someone realizes too late. Noah didn't budge. Neither did I. You've got 5 minutes, I said. After that I take the stage. We stepped out to the balcony, overlooking the city's scattered lights. Zane leaned on the railing like it was holding him up. I'm not going to pretend I didn't screw everything up, he said. I lost the company. I lost whatever version of love I thought I had. I said nothing. I thought she'd fill the void, he continued. But all she did was mirror my emptiness. That made me blink. He turned toward me, eyes red-rimmed but lucid. Everything I touched, it only worked when you were there. You didn't see that then, I said flatly. I know. He took a shaky breath. I wake up some mornings thinking I can fix it. Then I see your name in another article. I see what you've built. And I know I'm not even a footnote in your story anymore. He wasn't wrong. But I came tonight because I needed to say it, to your face. Not in an email. Not on a call. He paused. I'm sorry, Ava. Not for what I lost. For not valuing what I had when it mattered. I let the silence settle between us. Then I nodded. Once. I believe you. A flicker of hope touched his eyes. But I wasn't finished. And I forgive you, I added. But that forgiveness isn't an invitation back into my life. It's a release from me, not for you. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them I saw the reality hit him in full. You really don't love me anymore. I did. Fully. Fiercely. I looked back at the ballroom where Noah waited, his silhouette steady through the glass doors. But I love me now. More. Back inside, the lights dimmed as I was introduced. Noah squeezed my hand. Miranda gave me a subtle nod from her table. I stepped onto the stage. The ballroom was silent. And I began. There was a time not long ago when I thought success meant being next to someone powerful. That standing beside greatness somehow made you part of it. But I learned the hard way that true power doesn't come from proximity. It comes from walking away. Rebuilding. Reclaiming. They called me a ghost founder. A silent partner. A woman scorned. Let me correct the record. I was always the architect. And I'm no longer silent. Applause erupted. Not polite. Not polite at all. Fierce. Earned. Noah met me at the bottom of the stairs, his expression unreadable. Then he whispered, "Remind me never to break your heart." I smiled. "You won't." Later I stood by the bar sipping sparkling water when I saw Zane leaving through the side door. Alone. No cameras followed. No hands reached for him. He turned one last time, looking at me across the room. This time I was the one who turned away. Destruction isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as an email. A press release. A withdrawal notice. One by one they came. Like dominoes falling at the pace I had calculated months ago. Zane's empire, once a darling of tech media, was collapsing. Not in fire, not in scandal, but in something far more permanent. Silence. It began the morning after the Aurora Gala. A notification hit the industry wire. Lynx Capital officially pulls funding from Virion Tech. No explanation. Just a simple statement. We no longer see alignment with the brand's future direction. Then less than 24 hours later, Moreland Ventures reallocates funds. Sights shift toward transparent innovation. Miranda didn't call me. He didn't have to. She'd made her move. By the end of the week, Virion Tech's valuation had dropped by nearly 40%. And inside the company, pandemonium. Jason forwarded me screenshots from a source in finance. Emails marked urgent. Meeting subjects like, asset salvage plan? Staff begging for clarity while leadership spun in circles. Zain tried to hold a team meeting over Zoom. Only 14 of 62 employees showed up. Someone leaked the recording to the press. In it he looked desperate. Hollow. Repeating the word resilience like it would plug the holes in a sinking ship. No one bought it. Meanwhile, Archiva Labs soared. After the gala, our beta list doubled in 3 days. One of our UX features, transparent privacy indicators for end users, was being hailed as the next standard in ethical tech. Investors called. Founders messaged. I became the subject of 3 feature interviews. One of them from Forbes Tech titled it, From Ghost to Giant, Ava Sinclair's Digital Rebirth. Zain wasn't mentioned once. I was at the office, barefoot with Helena repainting the whiteboard when the next big blow came in. A team member burst in. Breaking, she said. Zain's CFO just resigned. Publicly. Helena leaned against the ladder, wiping her hands. You're kidding. Posted a full open letter on Medium. I took the iPad. The headline stopped me cold. I can't lie for him anymore. Why I'm leaving Virion Tech. The letter detailed years of internal mismanagement. Silent misuse of funds. Inflated impact reports. And finally, an admission that Zain had been using my original codebase for the platform's core engine. Illegally. I knew it. Always had. But now. Now it was public. And irreversible. Within hours the news spread. Whistleblower confirms Virion Tech's use of stolen IP. Ex-CTO Ava Sinclair finally vindicated. The end of Zain Rowe's reign? Twitter was relentless. The top trending tag? #SheBuiltIt. Zain's lawyers tried to get ahead of it, offering a settlement if I agreed to keep quiet. My lawyer, Renata, smiled as she pushed the papers across the table toward me. I think you know what I'm going to say, I murmured. She nodded. Still fun to hear. I looked straight into the eyes of the junior attorney they sent in Zain's place. I'm not interested in a settlement. His brows lifted. I'm interested in an apology. Public. Recorded. Shared. He blinked. He'll never. Then I'll see him in court. With full IP theft charges. And I'll livestream the deposition. Zain caved within 3 days. The video dropped on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Just him sitting at a desk reading off a prepared statement. I acknowledge that the original Virion Tech core platform was built on code authored by Ava Sinclair without her consent or proper credit. I regret the oversight and take full responsibility for my actions. No emotion. Just words. And yet, it was everything. The press went wild. Me. I didn't celebrate. Not loudly. Just a soft nod as I watched. Then I turned off the video, walked out to the Archiva bullpen and said, it's done. The room erupted. Helena cried into her 3rd coffee. Noah picked me up off the floor and spun me around. But me. I just breathed. For the first time in years. Later that night, Noah and I sat on the rooftop of our office, a bottle of celebratory wine between us. Below, the lights of the city shimmered. Above, for once it was quiet. He looked at me. You're free now. I think I always was, I replied. I just forgot how to be. He reached over, brushing a piece of hair from my face. You know what the best part is? He asked. I shook my head. You didn't win because you got back at him. You won because you chose you. Every step of the way. I smiled. Because he was right. The revenge had never really been about Zain. It had always been about reclaiming the narrative. I hadn't just burned the house down. I rebuilt a mansion next door. And I never once had to raise my voice. I didn't throw a divorce party. There were no balloons, no cake, no glittery Instagram posts with captions like, free at last woman dancing, or his loss, my glow up. When the final papers arrived, I was sitting in my office wearing yesterday's sweatshirt, sipping lukewarm coffee, and reviewing launch specs with our product team. I signed the document with a blue pen, dated it, and moved on. The silence felt more powerful than any celebration. Because there was nothing left to grieve. Zain, however, didn't go quietly. The headlines in the weeks following our finalized divorce painted the story of a man unraveling. Virion Tech lays off 60% of staff as shares plummet. Zain Rowe removed from CEO role. Company names interim director. Former Golden Boy, declared ineligible for future board appointments by Tech Ethics Coalition. Every day another fracture. Every day another lesson in poetic justice. Helena sent me screenshots daily like morning horoscopes. Today's vibe, regret and public downfall. Lucky number, 404, not found. Zane tried to pivot. He pitched a new founder recovery podcast. Never made it past the trailer. No one wanted to hear the voice of a man who'd stolen, stumbled, and sulked his way into oblivion. His last desperate move? Reaching out to me. He emailed me the week after the Archiva Labs platform officially launched. Subject line, from one founder to another. Ava, I know you won't respond, but I wanted to say congratulations. I watched your keynote. I watched the way the audience looked at you. You're not just building something, you're changing things. I'll never be able to undo what I did. I can only hope that someday, people forget I was part of your origin story. But I hope you never forget who you became because of it. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But thank you for being the reason I finally saw myself. Even if I hated what I saw. Zane. I didn't reply. Instead I archived it. Then shut my laptop and walked into a strategy session with my team, who were far more worthy of my time. As for Tessa, her disappearance was even quieter than her arrival. After her final public meltdown, she vanished from all social media. Rumor had it she left the country. Something about a boutique yoga certification retreat in Bali and a detox from toxic femininity criticism. Helena joked she'd reappear as a soul coach with an ebook titled Forgive Me, Followers. No one really missed her, because no one had really known her. In contrast, I was finally known. Not as someone's silent partner. Not as someone's ex. But as Ava Sinclair. Builder. Survivor. I was invited to join a think tank for ethical innovation. My name was floated as a potential nominee for the Tech Women of the Year award. And my face, my actual face, was on the cover of TechForge Weekly, standing beside the Archiva Labs logo with the headline, "Not his plus one. Her power." In the middle of it all, Noah remained constant. Steady. Unwavering. He didn't try to fix things. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just showed up. Dinners after long workdays. Walks through the park when I couldn't sit at my desk another second. Notes on my desk in his barely legible scrawl that said things like, "You're the future. And damn, you're doing it well." He never once asked for a title. Never pressured me for answers. Until one night as we stood on the rooftop watching the city blink alive beneath us, I turned to him and said, "I want this." He looked at me unreadable. "This?" I nodded. No timelines. No expectations. Just us. He smiled, slow real. The kind of smile you only give when you've waited a long time for something and are still surprised it finally arrived. "Then I'm yours," he said. Not a declaration. A promise. We didn't announce anything. No press releases. No public photos. Because some things don't need to be posted to be real. We just were. And that was enough. One rainy Sunday I visited the apartment Zane and I used to share. It had been sitting unsold for months, stripped of everything but the memory of what had once been. I didn't go for nostalgia. I went for closure. I stood in the doorway for 3 minutes. Took one last look at the walls that had heard every fight, every apology, every betrayal. Then I turned the key in the lock and handed it to the realtor waiting downstairs. "List it," I said. "Starting at what price?" "Doesn't matter. I won't be coming back." That evening I sat on my couch, hair still damp from the rain, scrolling through a draft of our Series A announcement. Helena walked in carrying Thai takeout. "Let me guess," she said. "We're eating, you're pretending not to cry over your own comeback, and Noah's bringing wine?" "Correct on all three," I said. She plopped onto the couch. "You know, this whole revenge arc? Peak cinema." I laughed. It wasn't about revenge. "No," she smirked. "But it made for damn good headlines." As we ate, the news pinged in from the usual tech blogs. Virion Tech files for bankruptcy, former employees speak out. I didn't even flinch. Zane's story had ended. Mine had only just begun. Zane Rose rock bottom didn't come with sirens, lawsuits, or cuffs. It came with silence. No phone calls. No meetings. No one left to blame. He wasn't the golden boy anymore. He wasn't even a cautionary tale. He was a ghost in the city he once owned. The last time I saw him before it all imploded, he stood at the edge of a fundraising panel I'd spoken at, half hidden behind a row of empty chairs. Unshaven. Wrinkled shirt. That look in his eyes. The one you only get when you've lost not just a career, but the version of yourself you built your ego around. He didn't approach me. Didn't speak. Just stared. I walked right past him. And that, I think, broke him more than anything I could have said. But his real collapse? It came one rainy night 2 weeks after Archiva Labs' Series A round made national news. We were now backed by some of the biggest venture firms in the country. Miranda's name at the top of the list. We celebrated with pizza, champagne, and Helena's homemade, "You did it, you brilliant witch" cupcakes. Then came the knock. It was late, nearly midnight. Noah was asleep on my couch, a book resting on his chest. Helena had passed out in my armchair, still wearing one shoe. I opened the door barefoot, wearing sweats. And there he was. Zane. Soaked from the rain. Trembling. Eyes bloodshot and hollow. A plastic grocery bag hanging from one hand containing, of all things, a bottle of red wine and a broken umbrella. For a moment neither of us said anything. Then, hoarsely, "I didn't know where else to go. I didn't move. You shouldn't have come here." "I know." He stood there like a man waiting for the earth to crack open beneath him and offer a way out. "I lost everything," he said, barely audible. "They took it all." "No," I said softly. "You gave it away." His shoulders sagged. "I don't know who I am without it. That's not my problem to solve." He nodded slowly, the weight of years catching up to him in a single breath. "Can I just sit for a minute? I won't ask for anything else." I hesitated, then stepped back. Just far enough for him to walk inside, but not far enough to suggest I'd forgotten. He entered like a man visiting his own grave. Noah stirred on the couch, blinking awake. When he saw Zane he didn't speak, just stood and walked to my side. "Proactive. Come." Silence strength. Zane's eyes flicked between us. And in that moment the truth settled on his face like cold air. This was no longer his story. It had never truly been. He sat on the edge of the coffee table, wet clothes dripping onto the floor, and looked around the apartment. The one I now shared with laughter, light, and a future that didn't need his name stamped on it. "This place feels like you," he murmured. I didn't reply. He pulled the wine bottle from the bag, stared at it, then set it down like an offering. "I bought it. Out of habit, I guess." He looked up, eyes glassy. "You really love him?" Noah didn't flinch. And I didn't hesitate. "Yes." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I used to be the one who knew you best," he whispered. "And you used that knowledge to cut me the deepest," I said. "That's the difference." His hands shook slightly as he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in tissue. He placed it gently on the table. I didn't move. When he unfolded the paper I recognized it instantly. The first flash drive we ever used. Silver, scratched, engraved with our initials. Z+8 version 1.0. "This has the first pitch deck," he said. "The one you built." I raised a brow. "The one you deleted before our seed round?" He nodded. I lied. "I kept it. I couldn't erase what you made even then." There was nothing romantic about his words. No redemption arc. No apology grand enough to rewrite the past. It was just a man drowning in the remnants of his ego. And me, standing on dry land, refusing to dive in after him. Helena woke up just in time to see him leaving. "Was that?" she mumbled, eyes adjusting to the light. "Yeah." She blinked. "Did he cry?" "Not enough." She yawned. "Want me to delete his number from your phone again for the symbolic flourish?" "No need," I said, closing the door behind him. "This time I won't even check if he texts." The next morning my inbox held a message from TechLoop Weekly. Follow up on Ava Sinclair. Life after the fire. The article detailed the demise of Virion Tech in clinical, unsentimental terms. A final line stood out. "The tech world moves quickly. But it remembers the quiet ones who rise without begging for attention, and leave those who betrayed them standing in the silence of their own wreckage." Later that evening Noah and I took a walk through Golden Gate Park. No press. No headlines. Just fog and the sound of leaves crunching beneath our feet. I glanced over at him. "Did I handle that okay?" "With Zane." He considered it for a beat. "You didn't scream. You didn't gloat. You let him feel the loss without giving him the comfort of your forgiveness. That's colder than revenge." I smiled faintly. I wasn't aiming for cold. No, he said, you were aiming for peace. And you found it. He took my hand in his, threading our fingers together. As we walked under the fading light, I finally felt it. Not just freedom, but closure. The final blow wasn't loud. It wasn't some dramatic confrontation or scandalous exposé. It was a headline. A quiet, clean headline. Archiva Labs secures $30 million Series B, led by Moreland Ventures, Calder Equity and Avalon Tech. My name was printed below it. Not as an addendum. Not in parentheses. Front and center. Ava Sinclairville. The news dropped on a Monday. By Tuesday we were flooded with interview requests, podcast features and speaking invitations. By Friday Tech Future magazine asked me to be their cover story, solo. No mention of Zayn. No mention of my rise from the ashes. Just a woman who built something powerful from scratch. But the real moment, the one that mattered, came the following week when I walked into a board meeting and saw my name etched in gold on the placard in front of the table. I didn't sit at the edge anymore. I didn't pitch ideas I hoped someone else would fund. I was the table. That weekend Noah took me to the coast. He didn't tell me where we were going. Just told me to wear something warm and comfortable. I wore a cream knit sweater, boots and a quiet curiosity. We drove for hours in silence, the good kind. The kind that doesn't need filling because every breath says I see you and I'm not going anywhere. We stopped at a cliffside house overlooking the Pacific. I raised a brow. Is this our new office? He said with a crooked smile. Remote days. Planning retreats. Or a place for you to unplug. Is this for the company? No, he said, turning to face me. It's for you. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I inhaled. Before you panic, he said quickly, it's not a ring. It's a key. He opened it. Inside was a vintage brass key engraved with my initials. I know you've spent years having things taken from you, he said. Control. Credit. Choices. He handed me the key. I just wanted you to have something that's only yours. No strings. No conditions. Just space, to dream whatever comes next. I blinked back tears. And then I kissed him. Not for comfort. But for everything he was. The man who stood beside me, not in front of me. Meanwhile Zayn was nowhere. The last public mention of him came in a short op-ed. Zayn Rowe, once Silicon Valley's golden boy, has withdrawn from the public eye. Sources say he's left the Bay Area entirely. A cautionary tale of ego erasure, and what happens when you build without foundations. No photos. No comeback tour. Just absence. Someone once said the opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. No. I felt nothing. No rage. No sadness. Not even pity. He was a shadow. And I no longer needed to acknowledge him to cast light. Archiva Labs grew faster than projections. We expanded our team. Hired 3 more engineers. Created an internship program specifically for underrepresented voices in tech. At the official product launch, I stood on stage in front of 500 people and said, "This isn't just a company. It's a reclamation. For every woman who was told she was difficult, too ambitious, not palatable enough. We're done asking for seats at the table. We're building our own, then locking the legs so no one can flip it." The applause was thunderous. But it wasn't the clapping that stayed with me. It was what happened after. A young girl, maybe 19, trembling, walked up to me with tears in her eyes. "You made me believe I don't have to be someone's backup plan," she whispered. "Thank you." I hugged her. Tightly. Because that was the legacy I wanted. Not revenge. Not correction. But impact. One morning, I returned to the old cafe where Zayn and I had once sketched Virionteca's first framework on a napkin. It had changed. New owner. Different menu. But the table in the corner was still there. I sat down with a notebook and coffee just like before. Only this time I wrote something different. Not code. Not strategy. Just a sentence. I am no longer built from what broke me. And for the first time in years I believed it. Noah joined me an hour later. He sat across from me, glanced at the page and nodded. "I like that," he said. "But I think you're more than that." "How so?" He took my hand. "You're not just healed. You're dangerous now in the best way. Because nothing owns you. Not your past. Not your pain. I grinned. So I'm terrifying? No, he said. You're free. The last scene of this story wasn't a spotlight. It wasn't a microphone or a headline. It was just me walking into the Archiva Labs headquarters on a rainy Wednesday, the sound of laughter echoing through the walls. I passed by my team. My people. The ones who knew the real story. I opened the door to my office and stood in front of the glass wall that faced the skyline. And for once I didn't think about what I'd lost. Only what I'd chosen. Peace. Power. Love. Me. The end.